Chapter 1557. An indescribable oppressive atmosphere immediately filled the space around Letitia and Pest. That oppressive atmosphere caused the surrounding passers-by to reveal astonished expressions. However, they tactfully withdrew from the area. Not long afterward, only Letitia and Pest remained in the corridor. As a result, an equally indescribable silence filled the space. Letitia merely stared at Pest without saying anything. However, Pest felt as if her heartbeat had sped up. This caused her to be unable to utter a single word. In an instant, her entire body had stiffened. After an unknown amount of time, Letitia finally opened her mouth and broke the silence and oppressive atmosphere. "And here I thought that you would be the same as me, that you would have been subdued by Master's dazzling performance and astonishing activity while quietly observing Master as a subordinate. You would no longer be as disgusted by Master's subordinate as you were at the beginning." Letitia's words caused the stiffness on Pest's face to disappear bit by bit. What replaced it was silence. Letitia asked bluntly as she looked at Pest, who had grown silent. "Could it be that I'm wrong?" "You're not wrong." Pest was silent for a long time before replying with an expressionless face. "Indeed, after seeing how dazzling that fellow is, I no longer feel as disgusted by becoming his subordinate as I did at the beginning." "You merely don't feel disgusted, right?" Letitia directly hit the nail on the head. "But there's no loyalty to speak of either, right?" "Loyalty?" Pest took a glance at Letitia and spoke in a mocking manner. "I only wish to ask, why should I express loyalty to that fellow?" Without waiting for Letitia's answer, Pest interrupted her with a sentence. "If you were still the demon King Dracula and had your game cracked by some unknown fellow and became his subordinate, would you still feel loyalty towards such a person?" Letitia stopped breathing. "There are two reasons why you are so loyal to that fellow. Firstly, aside from being subordinates, the two of you are also comrades in the same community. You don't have any resistance against him. Furthermore, you have been silently observing him from behind. You discovered that he possesses limitless possibilities. That's why you were willing to become his subordinate." Pest looked straight at Letitia. "Furthermore, he saved you from the fate of being unable to resist twice. That's why you're so loyal to him. Am I wrong?" Letitia had nothing to say. Pest was right. The reason why Letitia declared her loyalty to Noah so straightforwardly was because Noah had saved her with good intentions from the very beginning. Moreover, both of them were partners in the same community. At that time, Letitia was only grateful to Noah and had no loyalty to him. Later on, Letitia quietly served Noah from behind. Gradually, she noticed how dazzling her master was and was subdued by Noah. After that, Noah rescued Letitia from the unsealed game. The favorable impression Letitia had toward Noah that had been accumulating in her heart all this time erupted in one go. Because of that, Letitia finally developed the determination and loyalty to follow Noah at all costs. In the beginning, Letitia was only grateful to Noah. "But I'm different," Pest's voice entered Letitia's ears. "From the very beginning, that fellow and I have been enemies. My ambitions were shattered by him. My revenge against the sun was also ruined by him. Even my former companions were eliminated by you all. With that, how could I still be loyal to him?" Letitia was speechless. She could only look at Pest in a daze. She did not know what to say. Seeing the speechless Letitia, Pest slowly clenched her little hands and lowered her head. Her eyes were trembling non-stop as she squeezed out those words. "Besides, the only person who was saved is you. He never planned to save me." Those words finally woke Letitia up. "Pest." Letitia looked at Pest and hesitated for a moment. Then, she asked in an uncertain manner. "Could it be that you're yearning for Master to save you?" Pest's delicate body trembled. She bit her lips and turned her back to Letitia. "I don't need that fellow to save me. After saying those words, Pest planned to leave. However, Letitia grabbed her hand. Tell me, Letitia looked into Pest's eyes. Exactly what caused you to fall and become a demon king? An existence that possessed the authority of the host and abused it would fall and become a demon king. An existence that had fallen and become a demon king would most definitely possess their own goals. Letitia's actions were due to a momentary lapse in thought. For the sake of avenging her clansmen that had rebelled against her, Letitia was overwhelmed by hatred and became a demon king. Then, she unleashed the most vicious bestowal game in history. Since that was the case, what was the reason why Pest became a demon king? Avenging the sun. That shouldn't be the only reason, no. Letitia said to Pest. Could it be related to the saving you mentioned earlier? So what if I know? Pest spoke mockingly without even turning her head around. You couldn't possibly be thinking of pleading for leniency for me before that fellow so that he could fulfill my wish, right? I don't need that sort of sympathy. To Pest's surprise, Letitia said those words without the slightest hesitation. Why must I plead for leniency for you? That's something that you should do, no? Ha! Pest turned around and looked to Letitia with an expression of disbelief. Something that I should do. That's right, Letitia nodded. If you truly yearn for master salvation, you should go and plead for it yourself. Why should I? Pest grew angry. Could it be that when you yearned for salvation back then, you've asked for his help? Hearing those words, how could Letitia not understand? Even though Pest did not become loyal to Noah like Letitia, she was also attracted by the endless possibilities that Noah possessed as she served him as his subordinate. After personally witnessing Noah rescuing Letitia from her irresistible fate and sensing the endless possibilities that Noah possessed, Pest also began to yearn for Noah. She yearned for Noah to rescue her from her irresistible fate. However, Noah had never once shown any attention to Pest. You are his comrade. When you're in trouble, even if you don't ask for his help, he will still be willing to save you. Pest shouted at Letitia as if she was venting all the resentment in her heart. But, to him, I am nothing more than a spoil of war he won from a game. He has never shown any attention to me. No. You're wrong. Letitia tightened her grip on Pest's hand. It is not that Master is not paying attention to you. Ha! Pest sneered. What makes you say that? What makes me say that? Letitia narrowed her eyes. Because Master has never asked you about the Demon King Alliance. You. Pest's eyes suddenly opened wide as she spoke in shock. You already know about it. You were once a member of the Demon King Alliance. Did you think that it would be very difficult for this matter to be exposed? Letitia asked. It's not only me. Master must have also noticed it. No, impossible, Pest began to waver. If he already knew about it, why didn't he ask me about the Demon King Alliance? It shouldn't be hard to guess the reason, right? Letitia's words pierced into Pest's heart. Master is waiting for you to speak. It's not that he is not paying attention to you. Pest was stunned. Seeing such a reaction from Pest, Letitia sighed. Then, she walked past Pest and continued to walk forward. I feel that if you truly desire salvation, you should grasp it yourself and not throw a tantrum here. After all, he is both my master and your master. How could he only save me and not you? After saying those words, Letitia began to walk toward Noah's room. Seeing Letitia's back gradually growing further and further away, Pest still had a stunned expression on her face. However, at the very next moment, Pest followed after him as if she was possessed by a supernatural being. The so-called grace of God, in fact, is to stimulate personal possibilities in the way of gaining experience points, in the most intuitive way, adding it to this person's body as nourishment to promote his growth. In this way, Noah's potential was stimulated, which was equivalent to the possibility of sleeping in his body being more or less stimulated. Therefore, Noah successfully triggered this part of the possibility and allowed his ability points to be updated. Noah, Doria LV. 6 Strength, I, 0, SSS, 1857, Durability, I, 0, SSS, 1867, Dexterity, I, 0, SSS, 1864, Agility, I, 0, SSS, 1871, Magic, 0, SSS, 1855, Mystery, CA Magic, D Swordsman, B Break, B Toughness, IA Magic, Weapon Refining, Steel Making Magic. Copy, refine, and forge weapons. Copy, refine, and forge weapons will be weakened to a certain extent according to the level, performance, and ability of the weapon. Copy, refine, and forge weapons will be maintained according to the level, performance, and ability of the weapon. Swords Protection, Permanent Magic. Permanent protection according to the attributes of the contracted spirit. Contract spirit as a sword spirit, obtain the protection of the sword spirit, and weaken physical attacks on oneself. The degree of weakening increases or decreases according to the strength and ability of the target. Cold Smelting, Quick Attack Magic. Gradually turn the target into steel. Successful tempering will cause the target to shatter. Tempering speed is determined according to the strength and ability of the target. Skills, Protection from the world, permanent skill. Equivalent to luck. Events that are directly related to luck will eventually lead to the most favorable result. Overall strength increased by nearly 10,000 proficiency points. After reaching LV 6, it was a miracle to be able to increase so much in one go. Perhaps it was because of this miracle, the development ability of Mystery actually increased by 2 levels in one go, reaching stage A. Even the toughness, which was originally at the lowest stage, seemed to have been stimulated by Noah's physical potential and had undergone a huge improvement. It directly surpassed the 3 development abilities of Magician, Swordsman, and Shatterer, catching up with Mystical and reaching the stage. After all, this development ability was originally closely related to the body. It could stimulate the vitality of the body when Noah was severely injured, so that when Noah was severely injured, he would not be affected and could perfectly display his strength. Now, the potential of the body was stimulated, so naturally, the development ability of toughness was also greatly improved. Just by stimulating a little bit of potential, Noah's ability was worth so much improvement. It could be imagined how amazing the possibilities of Noah's body had reached. It was no wonder that even Hestia was shocked. Letitia and Pest were also attracted by the limitless possibilities. Slightly clenching his fist and feeling the abundant power in his body, Noah's eyes flashed with excitement. Now, even using 3 avatars at the same time is not a problem. Even if I use 4 avatars at the same time, I can still succeed after paying some price, right? What did this mean? It meant that Noah's strength skyrocketed overnight. Coupled with Sun's sovereignty, which was still studying how to use it, perhaps, Noah already had the ability to truly dominate the box. After all, when using 2 avatars at the same time, Noah could already match 3 figures. Being able to use 3 avatars at the same time, he was definitely at the top among 3 figures. And being able to use 4 avatars at the same time, there was absolutely no opponent among 3 figures. Unless the opponent was like the Halloween Queen, who was an exception among the 3 digits. In terms of strength, she could definitely enter the 2 digits. Of course, the only exception among the 3 digits was the Halloween Queen. Therefore, if Noah were to give it his all now, he might be able to contend against those existences in the double digits. But, what about a single figure? Noah gradually calmed down and frowned. It seems that I can't find any description of the existence of a single digit in any ancient book. According to Noah's knowledge, the Asura gods and Buddhas that created the box were all in the 2 and 3 figures. As for this single figure, it was never mentioned. Even an existence like Shakyamuni is only in the two figures. Galji, who has completed his spiritual framework, might be able to surpass Shakyamuni, but he is also only in the two figures, right? What kind of existence is a single figure? The more he thought about it, the more Noah felt that something was amiss. Thinking about it carefully, the gods and the various mythological systems that I know of are all in the three figures. Even the main god-level existences are in the three figures. There are some exceptions that are in the two figures, but none of them are in the one figure. In that case, could it be that there are no existences in the one-figure range? Or could it be that the existences in the one-figure range were so powerful that even the three strongest races were unable to match them? All of a sudden, Noah fell into deep thought. Right at this moment, someone knocked on Noah's door. "Master, are you awake?" This voice woke up Noah from his deep thoughts. "Letitia." Noah raised his head. "Come in." After those words left her mouth, Noah's door was opened. Letitia, who was wearing maid attire, slowly walked in. Behind her, Pest lowered her head and silently followed behind her. Seeing Letitia and Pest slowly walking in with her head lowered, Noah's sharp senses picked up on something strange. Chapter 1559. Amen. Right after entering the room and seeing Noah, Letitia had a very peculiar feeling. "Master." Letitia sized up Noah. A trace of confusion appeared on her tender and adorable face. Letitia's strange behavior caused Pest, who had been keeping her head down the entire time, to raise her head and look at Noah. Then, she too was startled and revealed a puzzled expression. Looking at the strange expressions on the faces of his two subordinates, Noah couldn't help but size himself up and asked in confusion. "What's wrong? Could it be that my body is stained with some sort of strange substance?" "No, that's not it." Letitia shook her head and frowned in a vexed manner. She did not know how to describe her feelings. Instead, it was Pest who hesitated for a moment before asking in a probing manner. "Why do I feel like you're different from before?" That's right. This was the reason why Letitia and Pest were behaving in such a manner. Looking at Noah, who was sitting on the bed, both Letitia and Pest felt that something was different from before. The two girls did not know how to describe this feeling. If they must describe it, it would be that they felt as if Noah's existence had suddenly become much stronger. It was as if the existence known as Noah Dole had suddenly become very noble. "So that's what you're talking about?" Noah nodded his head in relief. "Perhaps it's because I've obtained the spirit core." "You've obtained the spirit core?" Letitia and Pest were immediately stunned. However, Noah's explanation was correct. As mentioned in the past, the so-called spirit core referred to one's achievements and inheritance. For example, U2 was originally a very ordinary rabbit. However, for the sake of saving an old man who was being burned by fire, she bravely jumped into the raging flames and sacrificed herself. Because of that, she obtained Sakra's acknowledgement and was promoted to U2's day. That was a type of achievement. As U2's descendant, Black Rabbit obtained the inheritance of this achievement. Because of that, it was known as the Noble of Box Court. That was the sublimation of life. When a human accomplishes a great feat, they will be honored as heroes. Those who inherited the royal bloodline would be regarded as heirs of a noble bloodline even if they didn't do anything big. These were all referring to existences like Lingu. In the past, Noah only had strength but no spirit. He was just like an ordinary human. Now, Noah had obtained the spiritual core of the third perpetual motion machine. It was as if he had suddenly completed a great achievement or inherited some kind of bloodline. It was natural that he would give people a feeling of nobility. Letitia and Pest were not newcomers to this place. Naturally, they could understand this logic. Therefore, the two girls were both relieved and surprised. He was relieved because he finally understood what that strange feeling was. They were surprised because Noah had obtained the spirit core. What kind of spirit did Master obtain? Letitia asked curiously. From the looks of it, it seems to be a very unusual spirit. I don't know if it's unusual or not. The corners of Noah's mouth couldn't help but curl up slightly. However, it's a fact that it's extremely helpful to me. As he said this, Noah raised his hand and looked at it. He slowly clenched his fist and spoke with great confidence. Now, even if its existence is like White Yiksha and Halloween Queen, I'm confident that I won't lose. It was a simple sentence, but it was as if thunder had struck them. It made Letitia and Pest's bodies tremble, and their eyes widened. Won't lose to White Yiksha and Halloween Queen. What kind of joke was this? What kind of existences were those two? The former was the most powerful star spirit who had intimidated many groups of gods since ancient times. She had once ruled over all the centers of the universe and was ranked in the top 10 of Box Court. The latter was an exceptional existence among the 3 digits. In terms of strength alone, she could be promoted to the 2 digits. White Yiksha viewed her as an enemy. Even in the entire Box Court, these 2 almighties were among the top existences. Now, Noah claimed that he was confident that he wouldn't lose to them. If it were someone else, Letitia and Pest would definitely not believe it. However, since it was Noah who said this, Letitia and Pest had no choice but to believe it. It wasn't just because the 2 girls already knew that Noah possessed limitless possibilities. It was also because Noah's sense of existence and noble temperament were telling Letitia and Pest that their master had indeed obtained extraordinary opportunities. He was already an expert who could force the 3 digits demon kings into desperate straits. Now, he had taken a step further and obtained extraordinary opportunities. With Noah's possibilities, what was strange about him being able to rival White Yiksha and Halloween Queen? Thus, Letitia smiled happily. He actually said that he's confident that he won't lose to White Yiksha and Halloween Queen. Really, does my master have a limit? Pest looked at Noah with a complicated expression. Her heart was filled with mixed feelings. Noah's strength had increased. What Pest felt the most was joy. That was because it meant that the hope Pest saw in Noah was not something flashy and without substance. However, at the same time, Pest was at a loss as to what to do. It was as Letitia said. Pest had her own wishes. At the same time, she had noticed Noah's possibilities and believed that he had the ability to help her realize her wishes. Because of that, she had more or less felt a desire to be saved. However, Noah had never shown too much attention to Pest. This caused Pest to be at a loss as to what to do. After all, Pest had said it herself. Before she became Noah's subordinate, she was only Noah's enemy. After becoming Noah's subordinate, she would only be his spoils of war. Under such circumstances, how could Pest possibly have the face to ask Noah to help her fulfill her wishes? Earlier, she had thrown such a huge tantrum before Letitia mostly because of this. Currently, Noah had already become an existence that could match White Yiksha and Queen of All Saints. If Noah was willing to help Pest, it would be very likely that Pest's wish would be fulfilled. This caused Pest to have the urge to pour her heart out to Noah. However, when she thought about how Noah truly did not care about her as much as he cared about Letitia, Pest had a feeling of not knowing where to start. At that moment, Pest was truly at a loss as to what to do. She could only look at Noah with a complicated expression. Naturally, Noah did not know that Pest was feeling so vexed. However, Noah was still able to see through Pest's complicated expression. At that moment, Noah sighed softly and said to Pest, "Do you have something you want to say to me?" Pest's heart tightened. Panic appeared on her face. "Why are you so flustered?" Noah did not know whether to laugh or cry. "If you have something to say, just say it. It's not like I'm going to eat you." Who knows? Pest once again had the urge to pour her heart out. However, the words that came out of her mouth were mocking words. I am merely a subordinate of yours. Whatever you want to do to me, it's up to you. It's not like I can resist. Her sour words were like those of an unfavored concubine. At the same time, Noah became speechless, and Letitia did not know whether to laugh or cry. It would appear that Pest truly held a great amount of resentment toward Noah for the disparate treatment she received. Noah could only scratch his cheeks and say helplessly, very well. It's like you said. No matter what I do to you, you cannot resist. In that case, what else is there for you to be worried about? In any case, you can't resist, right? In that case, why don't you just tell me what you want to say? Pest opened her mouth slightly. She wanted to say something. However, she did not know what to say. Her appearance of wanting to say something yet hesitating caused Noah to feel conflicted. Right when Noah was planning to say something, an extremely frightening pressure suddenly enveloped the entire space. The sudden pressure shocked both Letitia and Pest. Noah's expression grew serious. He suddenly turned his head around and looked outside the window. In the next second, Noah saw it. On the other side of the sky, an innumerable amount of people were slowly surging toward them. It was like a black curtain. Chapter 1560. At the edge of the cloudless and clear sky, a large group of people rushed in like a curtain of night covering the sky. These people were basically all fully armed. Some flew directly in the air. Some were carried by chariots and ark-like mounts. However, there was no doubt that these people were in the same group. Moreover, there were an astonishing number of them. If one looked carefully, they could even see it. In addition to those who were flying in the air, the rest of the people carried by mounts had a flag fluttering in the wind on the chariots and arks. Those flags were of almost all kinds. What did this prove? It proved that these people who rushed in from the other side of the sky belonged to different communities. However, at this very moment, such a group of people was swarming over from the other side of the sky. Not long after, an astonishing number of people flew to the sky above the vampire's castle. Soon after, one of the people in the lead spoke in a cold voice. Surround that castle for me. The rest of the leaders nodded one after another, indicating their agreement. Suddenly, the huge crowd covering the entire vampire's castle spread out, surrounding the castle floating in the air, surrounding the entire castle. What happened? Where did so many communities come from? Why are they surrounding us? What the hell happened? In the castle of vampires, all the communities were in a state of panic, causing an astonishing commotion on the streets. In the next moment, a voice rang out from the sky above the entire vampire's castle. Don't panic. That voice was obviously using some kind of gift, which caused every corner of the ancient castle to resonate. However, hearing this voice, the communities that fell into panic seemed to have found their backbone and gradually calmed down. Immediately, in the center of the castle, in front of the throne room, several pterosaur-shaped fire dragons soared into the sky and flew into the sky. Above, Sarah, Shadora, Mandora, and the others were sitting. In addition to Sarah, Shadora, and the others, there was also a group of members of No Name, Black Rabbit, Flying Bird, Yao, and even Wren. Noah, on the other hand, brought Letitia and Pest to float in the air alone, looking at the sky with a group of people. Looking at the sea of people surrounding the vampire's castle floating in the air, Noah's eyes gradually turned cold. Not for other reasons, but because Noah knew the background of these people. Not only Noah, but the others also recognized the origin of these people. Looking at the flags fluttering on the chariots and arks, Sarah cried out in shock. Are those the communities belonging to the upper gods? Yes. Those fluttering flags were all the flags belonging to the communities belonging to the many god groups in the heavens. Moreover, they are all flags of communities with at least 4 digits, Mandora also said in shock. Why did the communities belonging to the gods in the sky suddenly come here? Could it be? Shadora couldn't help but say. Are they the reinforcements sent by the Sky Army to help us suppress the Demon King? No, definitely not. Ren's face was filled with nervousness and worry. If they were reinforcements, they wouldn't surround us so aggressively like this. In other words, they didn't come with good intentions. Those guys were definitely not his allies. Then why? Black Rabbit couldn't help but ask. Why did the communities belonging to the upper gods surround us like this? Hearing this, Noah finally spoke. Don't worry, their goal is not you, but me. You? Everyone immediately looked at Noah in surprise. Noah didn't pay attention to the surprised gazes of the crowd. He just looked at the army that surrounded the entire castle. In the completely uncountable sea of people, Noah only noticed the group of people in the lead. Only from that group of people did Noah feel a very unusual aura. Are they all gods? The gods here referred to not only the acquired gods. Noah's sensing ability clearly told him, undoubtedly. Among that group of gods, there were even natural gods. The strongest species. The existence in charge of leading the god army was one of the 3 strongest species. Among them, there was even a 3-digit existence. Because of this, everyone was so shocked. Noah looked at the group of gods and distinguished the flags that were fluttering near them. I see, almost all the gods of the mythological system are here, even the gods of the Celtic mythology are here. That was why Faith Reese didn't appear. After all, if she appeared here, the Queen Knight wouldn't be able to choose a side. While Noah was calmly identifying the origins of each group of gods, the leading group of gods were also looking at each other and discussing. They seemed to be deciding who would represent each group of gods on this expedition. After a while, the person who first ordered the encirclement stood up. It was a god wearing an ancient-style robe. Judging from the terrifying pressure on his body, he was definitely a 3-digit existence. Moreover, he was the strongest species. The moment he stepped forward, the ancient god spoke to Noah and the others below with an emotionless tone. Among you, there should be a human called Noah Dole, right? That one sentence completely confirmed what Noah said earlier. These people were here for Noah. Noah. Faye now looked at Noah in surprise. What did you do? What do they want to do to you? Yao also spoke in a surprised and doubtful manner. Noah. Noah shook his head at Faye Niao and Yao. He didn't say anything and simply walked forward. Master. Letitia and Pest were slightly shocked. Just as they were about to step forward, they were stopped by Noah. You don't need to come out, Noah said indifferently. Just stay there and watch. It will be over soon. After saying those words, Noah left the crowd and walked in midair as if he was walking on flat ground. As a result, the eyes of the gods surrounding the entire castle of vampires all converged on Noah. The ancient god also stared at Noah and said coldly. Are you Noah Dola? Asked Noah Dola. I am. Noah stopped walking. He looked at the ancient god and shrugged. Lord God, may I ask what brings you here? You already know the answer, the ancient god coldly humphed and said without any scruples. From the very beginning, we only have one goal, and that is your son's sovereignty. Son sovereignty. Sarah and Shadora were stunned. Son sovereignty. Black Rabbit, Fei Niao, Yao Yuren and the others were also stunned. Only Letitia and Pest trembled and stood up in shock. Why? Pest's face was filled with astonishment. Why would the upper-class gods know that Guy has son sovereignty? No. That's not the main point. Letitia's tone became somewhat anxious. The real question should be why the upper-class gods actually came out in full force for two-sun sovereignty. Two-sun sovereignty. The ancient gods seemed to have heard Letitia's words and said mockingly, "It seems that you still don't know." Everyone looked at each other in dismay. "Then let me tell you," the ancient wind god said loudly. Noah Dole doesn't just have two-sun sovereignty. The White Knight King has already transferred all of his sun's sovereignty to this human. He has at least 14 sun sovereignty, which is more than half of the sun's sovereignty. Whoa! Everyone was shocked. More than half of the sun's sovereignty. Black Rabbit was shocked. Lord White Knight King actually transferred all of his sun's sovereignty to Mr. Noah. This. Even Letitia didn't think of this and was suddenly at a loss. More than half of the sun's sovereignty. Pest looked at Noah with a gaze filled with shock, surprise, and even ecstasy. That guy, he already has more than half of the sun's sovereignty. At this moment, everyone was completely shocked and lost their voice. Chapter 1561. The entire world fell into an indescribable silence. Everyone present, whether it was Hei-Tu, Fei-Niao, Yao, Letitia, Pest, Ren, Sarah, and Shadora, or the various communities still in Castle of Vampires, all of them fell into a state of absolute silence. At this moment, there was only one expression on everyone's faces as they looked at Noah. That was shock. Why were White Yiksha and Halloween Queen so transcendent? Apart from their own strength, a large part of the reason was their sovereignty over the sun. The importance and uniqueness of the sun's sovereignty had been mentioned many times before, so there was no need to mention it again. White Yiksha alone occupied 14 of the 24 sun sovereigns, while Halloween Queen occupied 6. Only the remaining 4 were allowed to flow out and be fought over by others. This led to White Yiksha and Halloween Queen's transcendent status. Now, White Yiksha had transferred the sovereignty of 14 suns to Noah. According to the conversation just now, everyone knew that Noah himself seemed to hold the sovereignty of the other 2 suns. Didn't that mean that Noah alone held the sovereignty of 16 suns, which was more than White Yiksha and Halloween Queen in the past? This fact caused everyone's hearts to waver. A huge commotion once again emerged in the vampire's castle. However, this time, Sarah and Shadora, the 2 rulers of the hierarchy, no longer spoke up to suppress it. This was because even the 2 of them were shocked by this fact. For a moment, they didn't react. Noah could naturally understand how much commotion the matter of him possessing so many suns' sovereignty would cause. However, that had nothing to do with Noah. You're right. Noah nodded and admitted generously. White Yiksha has indeed transferred all the sun's sovereignty to me. So, you should know what to do, the ancient wind god said casually. As long as you hand over the sun's sovereignty, we will immediately retreat. We won't make things difficult for you people from the lower realm. It was only now that everyone understood why so many groups of gods had appeared in the heaven realm and appeared here. If they could obtain more than half of the sun's sovereignty from Noah's hands, no matter which god group they belonged to, their status and power would increase exponentially. It was not impossible for them to instantly surpass the rest of the god groups. However, no one had expected that. For the sovereignty of those suns, the gods of the heavenly realm actually turned out in full force, and even brazenly launched an attack. After all, what was the difference between such actions and robbery? Ranked in the upper echelons of the box court, there were at least 4 digits of existences, yet they were actually fighting in groups. He believed that after today, the reputation of all the gods in the heavenly realm would be completely ruined, right? However, those who had such thoughts did not know. The gods of heaven had already decided to abandon Box Ting and let them fend for themselves. In this way, why would the gods of the heaven realm care about how bad their reputation was? Therefore, the groups of gods no longer cared about their reputation. They formed an army of gods and started plundering. Should I admire you guys? Or should I mock you? Noah looked directly at the ancient wind god and said with a faint smile. For a human from the lower realm like me, almost all of the gods in the heavenly realm are mobilized. You guys really think highly of me. You don't have to mock us like this. Noah Dole, we already know what kind of ability you have. The ancient wind god was not moved at all. To be able to force AZ Dakaha into a corner, there's no doubt that you're as powerful as a 3-digit number. Coupled with the fact that you have more than half of the sun's sovereignty, your threat is enough to rival that of a main god. In the past, the great sage equal to heaven had the ability to mess with many god groups in the heavenly realm. He was only suppressed when more than 3 digits of powerful existences took action. The ancient wind god looked deeply at Noah. Although you are not like the victorious fighting Buddha who has the help of many demon kings, we think that you, who have more than half of the sun's sovereignty, are even more of a threat than the great sage equal to heaven. In order to not make any mistakes, we turned out in full force. You should feel honored. I said that you guys are fat, and you guys are really panting. Noah could not help but laugh. Honored? Would you feel honored when you were blocked by a group of robbers and robbed of your money? Don't say things that will make people laugh their heads off, okay? Noah's words caused a slight commotion among the group of gods. The leaders of the strongest species all cast angry and cold gazes at Noah. It made the pressure in the entire world suddenly increase. Obviously, to these strongest species who were born as gods, being mocked by a human was a very humiliating thing. Even the ancient wind god's face began to turn cold. So, you don't want to hand over the sun's sovereignty. White Yiksha transferred the sun's sovereignty to me because she wants me to help her protect the people in the lower realm. Noah glanced at the ancient wind god and narrowed his eyes. Since you guys have already made such a decision, you don't think that I will obediently hand over the sun's sovereignty, right? In other words, for the sake of the sun's sovereignty, you are willing to fight against all the gods, the ancient wind god said sarcastically. I admit that you, a human, are indeed very impressive to have the power to match even the existence of a main god. However, not only do we have many of the strongest species on our side, but all of them are ranked in the triple digits. Even the quadruple digits of the gods have come out in full force. Do you think you can fight against so many gods here? As the ancient wind god's words sounded, the thousands of gods surrounding the entire vampire castle released their pressure, filling the world with a terrible pressure. That pressure had already caused the faces of No Name's group to turn pale, while the members of the community within the ancient castle all felt that their breathing had become labored. If it were not for the fact that the pressure released by those gods was targeted at Noah, and that Noah bore more than 99% of the pressure released by the gods in the sky would definitely make the minds of those who were not even in the top 4 digits collapse. In the face of the terrible pressure, Noah was the only one who looked normal. Is that all you want to say? Seeing that Noah was still calm under the terrible pressure released by the gods in the sky, the group of strongest species in the lead changed their expressions, and they could not help but think more highly of Noah. I have to say, your decision is very unwise. The ancient wind god also felt that Noah was not simple, so he immediately changed the topic, as if he did not want to confront Noah directly. Although the sun's sovereignty is precious, it is impossible for you to keep so much sun's sovereignty. As long as you have more than half of the sun's sovereignty, all the gods in the celestial realm will see you as a target. Do you really want to be the enemy of all the gods? The ancient wind god's words made Noah raise his eyebrows. What are you trying to say? I want to say that our goal is only the sun's sovereignty, and we do not want to make things difficult for you, the ancient wind god said. How about this, if you are willing to give us the 14 suns sovereignty that the White Knight King transferred to you, then we will not take away the 2 suns sovereignty that you originally held. What do you think? After saying that, the ancient wind god used some unknown power to directly communicate with Noah's mind, and said in Noah's mind. Not only that, but we can also raise you and your companions to 4 digits, so you can obtain the right to move to the new courtyard, and you will not have to worry about the group of ordinary people in the lower realm." Noah suddenly fell silent. However, before the ancient wind godly spirit could rejoice, Noah sighed and said indifferently, "Don't worry. As expected, I should not have any expectations of you so-called gods." In one sentence, Noah had made up his mind. The ancient wind god's face darkened, and his eyes became cold. "How stupid! Stupid!" Noah laughed as if he had heard something funny, but there was no trace of a smile in his eyes. "I should be the one to say that." After saying that, Noah walked forward step by step. "You actually came here to die without knowing anything. What a fool." As these words rang out, a burst of starlight appeared on Noah's body. Chapter 1562. Clang! A dazzling burst of starlight flashed from Noah's body. The starlight was like stars that surrounded Noah but did not illuminate the surroundings like ordinary lights. Noah seemed to be carrying a sky full of stars. His body was shining with starlight as he walked forward step by step. Black Rabbit and the others were puzzled when they saw the starlight shining from Noah's body. What is that?" Among the tens of thousands of gods, aside from the rest of the gods, the leaders of the strongest species were all shocked. As one of the 3 strongest tribes, the natural gods, with their extraordinary experience, read the true form of the starlight shining from Noah's body. Is that? No way. How could a human have such a thing?" The ancient wind god's face was also filled with shock. Immediately after, an extremely strong sense of foreboding surged in his heart. Under the shroud of the foreboding, the ancient wind god's expression changed abruptly and he shouted, "This is bad. Let's retreat quickly." "Retreat?" Noah raised his head abruptly and looked in the direction of the group of strongest species. "It's too late." After saying that, Noah stretched out his hands as if he was going to hug something and put his palms in front of him. The starlight shining from Noah's body suddenly surged into Noah's hands and gathered in front of Noah's palms, forming a star atlas. At first glance, it looked as if Noah had wrapped the entire universe in his palms, causing the dazzling starlight to bloom from within. Seeing this scene, many gods finally gradually recognized the true form of the star map, and their faces were filled with horror. No, how could this be? No, impossible. As for the group of strongest breed-born deities, they all had an ominous premonition. Without any hesitation, they immediately turned around and fled. Unfortunately, a voice rang out before they could escape. "Activate the virtual star Tice way. Let the stars of the universe rotate. Simulate the star atlas, another cosmology." The star chart that had gathered in Noah's hands suddenly flickered, turning into a tide of starlight that surged out in all directions at an astonishing speed. It enveloped everyone in the surroundings in an instant. Wherever the dazzling starlight passed, everyone present, whether it was the gods and Buddhas in the sky or the communities in the ancient castle, was shocked to find that their star Taisui star atlas had changed. The spirit lattice in his body was dropping at an astonishing speed in an instant. My spiritual lattices. How could this be? My spiritual lattices are dropping. It was not only the others. Even Black Rabbit, Fei Niao, Yao, Letitia, Pest, Sarah, Shadora and the others were shocked to discover that their spirit levels were decreasing at an astonishing speed. It continued until only half of their spirit levels remained. Among the people present, only Noah and the strongest tribes who were planning to escape did not have their spiritual lattices reduced by half. However, Noah aside, although the natural gods did not have their spiritual lattices reduced by half, they were all unable to move. This was because the dazzling starlight that surged toward the strongest tribes began to spin and gradually gathered into stars made of dazzling starlight that enveloped the strongest tribes. Virtual star Taisway. One of the strongest tribes cried out in despair. This is the virtual star Taisway. This sentence caused the strongest tribes to show a look of despair on their faces. Virtual star Taisway. It was the simulate the star atlas, another cosmology, that could overcome all the differences in strength and seal the two strongest tribes, the deities and the astrals. When used on targets other than the deities and the astrals who were not the strongest tribes, it could only reduce their spiritual lattices by half. However, if it was used on the gods, who were the strongest species, it would be able to ignore their powers and seal them all into a fictional world. Now, these deities who were in the top 3 digits of the strongest tribes were all gradually being sealed. Without Noah's permission, these deities would probably never have the chance to see the light of day again. Why? The ancient wind deity roared crazily. Why does a human have the simulate the star atlas, another cosmology? Do you want to know? Noah's lips curled into a cold arc. Wait until you are in my prison. You will have plenty of time to think about it. After saying this, Noah suddenly clasped his hands in front of him. The star atlas that was heavily clasped in Noah's hands suddenly burst into a burst of astonishing starlight. It was like a pillar of light that soared into the sky and went straight into the clouds. Then, the deities who were enveloped by the starlight were all carried by the star atlas and flew in the direction of the pillar of light that soared into the sky. No! Following a series of neat cries, the deities who were born were all carried by the star atlas into the pillar of light that soared into the sky and disappeared. The only deities who were left behind were those who were not born, but were acquired. The gods and Buddhas in the sky could only watch helplessly as the strongest species leading the various god groups were all sealed one by one. Their faces turned ghastly pale in an instant. As for Black Rabbit and the others, they looked at Noah, who seemed to have captured the pillar of light that soared into the sky and the earth and sealed the deities one by one. The light in their eyes was all replaced by shock. However, what shocked Black Rabbit and the others even more was yet to come. Noah, who had captured the pillar of light that soared into the sky and the earth, looked around, and his dark and deep eyes flashed with a hint of sharpness. Since you are here, then all of you shall stay here. A burst of extremely terrifying divine power rose from Noah's body. In the depths of Noah's heart, on the stone plate that was connected to the outline of 10 patterns, 3 patterns lit up one after another. One was Phoenix. One was Thunder. The other was Priest. In this instant, Noah used 3 avatars at the same time. Beep, beep, beep. Accompanied by a burst of thunder and lightning, a burst of bright lightning rose from Noah's body and swept out. Because he used Phoenix at the same time, the violent lightning that swept out in all directions all carried a lightning speed, and in a form that could not be seen by the naked eye, it shot out in all directions indiscriminately. Although the deities and Buddhas present in the sky were not sealed, because of the power of illusory star Tai Sui, their spiritual lattices were all reduced by half, and their powerful strength that was enough to reach 4 digits suddenly dropped to 5 digits. Under such circumstances, the deities and Buddhas in the sky did not even have time to react before they were suddenly hit by the lightning that shot out at lightning speed. With a bang, their bodies were covered by the violent lightning. Aw, 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 aw. Screams rang out from the deities and Buddhas' mouths one after another. However, the deities and Buddhas in the sky did not notice. Mysterious runes were reflected on the lightning bolts that were crazily attacking their bodies. In the next second, the deities and Buddhas in the sky were all covered by the lightning that was covered with runes, and their strength and movements were all restricted, and they were completely unable to move. In the face of the deities and Buddhas that were covered by violent lightning, Noah only shouted softly, "Seal! Therefore, in the lightning that was moving on the deities and Buddha's bodies, mysterious runes flashed one after another. Then, the deities and Buddhas were carried by the lightning that was covering their bodies, and their bodies involuntarily flew in the direction of the pillar of light that was soaring into the sky. They were submerged in it, and followed in the footsteps of the strongest species. The terrifying divine power that was rising from Noah's body slowly converged. The pillar of light that was soaring into the sky also slowly shrank, and finally shrank into Noah's closed palm, and together with the shining star Atlas, it slowly disappeared. Henceforth, the many deities from the heaven realm were all sealed by Noah. Looking at the figure standing in the wind, Black Rabbit, Fei Niao, Yao, Letitia, Pest, Sarah, Shadora, and the various communities in the ancient castle were all stunned. They were unable to recover from their shock for a long time. Chapter 1563. I'm sorry. In the main hall of the throne hall, Noah apologized to his companions. Undoubtedly, the target of those gods was only me, but you all have to suffer with me. I'm really sorry. Hearing this, the group of people who followed Noah back to the throne hall looked at each other in dismay. Then, they all laughed bitterly. You're too polite, Mr. Noah. Sarah shook her head. Although it's said to be suffering, in fact, we didn't suffer any damage. If there is any impact, it's probably only that we have a new understanding of how powerful Mr. Noah is. Yes. Shadora nodded very seriously. It's not until today that we know how powerful Mr. Noah is. Before, we only knew that you could fight Az-Dakaha head-on. Now, it seems that this evaluation may be too low, but there is absolutely no possibility of it being too high. The existence of the final trial of humans was the oldest demon king with the characteristics of a god slayer. These existences were all the natural enemies of the gods. As a three-digit demon king, Az-Dakaha defeated more than 1 million gods with the help of the simulated star Atlas, another cosmology. Today, Noah, a human, also relied on another cosmology and his own strength to seal all the millions of gods. It was believed that after today, the name Noah Doria would become a legend that would not be inferior to the final trial of humans. After all, the scene of Noah activating another cosmology and sealing all the millions of gods was not only seen by the group of people here, but also by the members of the community in the vampire's castle. Perhaps, from today onwards, Noah would be famous even if he didn't want to. I didn't expect that, in addition to more than half of the sun's sovereignty, Mr. Noah also has another cosmology. Ren seemed to have a whole new level of respect for Noah. Although I knew that Mr. Noah's achievement must be extraordinary, I didn't expect it to be extraordinary to this extent. It's really shocking. This statement is a little too exaggerated. Noah could not help but laugh out loud. Although another cosmology is a gift that is more than 3 digits above the box court, it was only a coincidence that I was able to get it. I'm just like a nouveau riche. Why should I be so surprised? However, this statement was immediately refuted by Letitia. Master, there is something wrong with your statement. Letitia said very abruptly. Everyone is not surprised that you have another cosmology, but the fact that you can use another cosmology. The fact that I can use another cosmology, ? Noah was slightly startled. Yes. Black Rabbit shook a pair of rabbit ears and explained with some excitement. Since Mr. Noah has another cosmology, then you should know that the so-called another cosmology actually refers to another cosmology, right? Noah certainly knew this kind of thing. Therefore, Noah nodded without any surprise. Then, Mr. Noah should also know that people who have another cosmology often have the ability to become the center of a group of gods, right? Black Rabbit explained. In the box court, although another cosmology is a very precious and powerful gift, it is superior to the gifts of more than 3 digits in the box court, and it also represents the ability of the holder to become the center of a group of gods. How can anyone use it? That's right. Sarah nodded. Those who can have another cosmology are only recognized existences. If Mr. Noah himself does not have the ability to become the center of a group of gods, then he can't use another cosmology at all. It was because of this that many gods from the upper level of the box did not expect that Noah would suddenly use another cosmology, and those strongest gods who were born as gods would be so shocked by this matter. Those who could use another cosmology were only existences who had the ability to become the center of a group of gods. In view of this, those gods who were high above did not expect that a human being would have such an ability to hold another cosmology. As a result, those guys were all sealed by Noah's another cosmology and could not see the sun outside. So that's how it is. Flying Bird seemed to understand why everyone was so surprised until now. No wonder you guys are making such a fuss. A gift that is more than 3 digits above the box. Yao said somewhat naively. Doesn't that mean that from now on, Noah is invincible? This statement almost caused everyone to stumble. Aren't you thinking too much? Noah said, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. It's not like I'm the only one who holds the another cosmology, Lucian said with a smile. Moreover, although Master's another cosmology is very powerful, it also has a lot of limitations. Letitia analyzed. In the face of gods and stars who are the strongest species, it is an absolutely invincible existence. In the face of others, it can only exert the effect of having the spiritual lattice, which is not so useful. Is that so? Black Rabbit said with some surprise. Even if it can only have the spiritual lattice, the effect is still amazing, right? For those who rely on spiritual lattice, it can naturally exert a powerful effect, but for those who don't need to rely on spiritual lattice, it's not necessarily so. Sarah reminded. For example, Mr. 16 Nights, I can't sense a powerful spiritual lattice from him, but his combat power is very amazing, enough to rival 4-digit existences. That's true. Yao nodded. On the contrary, for Flying Bird, who has a type of divine lattice that can maximize the output of spiritual lattice, that another cosmology is a natural nemesis. Haruai-san. Flying Bird stared at Yao. Are you mocking me for relying too much on spiritual lattice? Haruhibu Yai-chi blinked his eyes in confusion. I'm just giving an example, I'm not referring to you. Everyone suddenly chuckled. However, it's really surprising that the ancestors, another cosmology, is in the hands of Noah-san. Shadora looked at Noah with some emotion. The another cosmology, called illusory star Taisui, seems to be the possession of the Star Sea Dragon King who created Salamandra, right? Yes, in the battle to seal Azir Dakaha 200 years ago, your father used it on the seal, and because the seal was destroyed, it fell into my hands. Noah spread his hands. Do you want me to return it to its original owner? No. Shadora shook her head, but a steady smile appeared on her cute face. I plan to give this another cosmology to Noah-san. Give it to me. Noah was surprised. Chapter 1564. Gift. Everyone present was more or less surprised by Shadora's words. Although it had been mentioned many times, it still had to be mentioned here. The so-called another cosmology was a gift that was more than 3 digits above the box. With that kind of gift, Noah was able to seal the strongest species of the gods and star spirits. Aziz Dakaha relied on it to repel millions of gods. Even Galji relied on it to release the power of Vishnu's avatar that corresponded to the sovereignty of the sun in his hand. The effect was not small. To put it bluntly, with the another cosmology, even if one could not dominate the box, it was absolutely no problem for one to be free and unfettered. Now, Shadora was giving such a gift to Noah. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked. However, Shadora didn't mind it at all and smiled. Indeed, another cosmology is a very powerful gift, but I don't think you can find anyone in Salamandra who can use it. Since that's the case, it's better to give it to someone who can use it. That way, it'll be of great value. Just because of that, Noah could not help but ask. Just because I can use the another cosmology, you plan to give me the important gift left by your ancestors? Of course, that's not all. Shadora looked at Noah. Mr. Noah once blocked Aziz Dakaha alone and bought time for the people of Flame City to retreat. If it was not for Mr. Noah, not only Salamandra, but even the residents of Flame City would have all been killed. You have done a great favor for Salamandra, and I have been troubled about how to repay it. Now, I am just giving a precious gift that can be seen but can't be used to Mr. Noah. Shadora's young and cute face was filled with determination. Moreover, the ruler of the East District, the star spirit of the sun, White Yiksha, is even willing to transfer the sovereignty of the sun to you in order to save the people of the lower realm. As the ruler of the North District, I will not be stingy. As she said this, Shadora looked straight at Noah. So, Mr. Noah, please help us defeat Aziz Dakaha and maintain order in the box from the Demon King. Everyone was touched by Shadora's words. Shadora is right. Sarah stepped forward and said to Noah. Mr. Noah is the only trump card on our side that can defeat Aziz Dakaha. In order to protect the box, if we can help Mr. Noah, we will definitely do it. I am also the ruler of the South District. If Mr. Noah has anything that Dragon Horn Griffin Lion to do, please do not hesitate. Seeing that Sarah and Shadora, the two rulers of the hierarchy, had expressed their opinions, the people of No Name were all silent. Noah looked at the determined expressions on Sarah and Shadora's faces and could not help but think of White Yiksha. Noah had encountered many people like rulers of the hierarchy who were entrusted with the responsibility of protecting order in many worlds in the past. However, Noah had not seen many people who could truly protect order from the bottom of their hearts. For example, in the world of the Black Bullet, Noah had encountered political darkness. He had lived in that world for a year and a half, so he was very clear about it. However, whether it was White Yiksha, Sarah, or Shadora, these rulers of the hierarchy not only held important positions, but they also lived up to their positions. They all maintained order in the lower realm of the box from the bottom of their hearts and protected the safety of the box's residents. For this reason, White Yiksha did not hesitate to transfer the sovereignty of all 14 sons to Noah, and Shadora did not intend to take back the another cosmology left behind by her ancestors. All of this was because these rulers of the hierarchy had placed their hopes of protecting order on Noah. After clearly understanding this, Noah glanced at Sarah, then at Shadora, suddenly smiled, and nodded. I will do my best. Although they did not receive any guarantees, Noah's words made Sarah and Shadora's expressions relax, and they smiled slightly. At this moment, a voice sounded in the throne room. Your Excellency Noah. Hearing the call, Noah turned his head, looked at the source of the voice, and then narrowed his eyes. The rest of the people present also looked over. When they saw the full appearance of the person, they all looked at each other. The person who came was Faith Reese. The pure white Queen Paladin walked over from the other side of the throne room and looked at Noah with a serious expression that had never been seen before. Can we talk? At this time last night, Faith made the same request. Today, the Queen Paladin, who had not been able to show her face while the gods in the heavens surrounded the vampire castle, now appeared and made the same request. Most of the people present more or less knew what Faith was planning to do. Therefore, Noah did not talk to Faith alone like last night. Instead, he directly spoke. If you want me to release the sealed Celtic gods, then I think we have nothing to talk about. This sentence made Faith's breath stop, and she said in shock. Your Excellency Noah, you don't plan to release the sealed gods. Why should I release them? Noah said as if it was a matter of fact. They are here to cause trouble for me. I think, for the sovereignty of the sun, they would not mind getting rid of me, so why should I let them go? But. Faith could not react in time. If you do that, it's the same as making an enemy of all the gods in the box court. Making an enemy of all the gods in the box court. Noah raised an eyebrow and said this sarcastically. Then after I get more than half of the sun's sovereignty, it's already decided, right? Faith was speechless. Clearly, the Queen Paladin did not expect Noah to not release the sealed gods. This was not a joke. Almost every one of the gods sealed by Noah was of famous existence in their respective mythological systems. If Noah did not release them, then almost every god would be dealt a fatal blow. If that happened, Noah and all the gods in the box court would be in a relationship that would not end until one of them was dead. Faith did not expect Noah to be so serious. Seeing Faith fall into a state of speechlessness, Noah pursed his lips and said this. There is a saying in the East. If people do not offend me, I will not offend them. If people offend me, I will definitely offend them. Since the gods in the heaven realm want to deal with me, then I have no reason to play games with them. The gods came out in full force just to get the sovereignty of the sun from my hands. Now that you've lost to me, you want me to let you go obediently? Do you really think I don't have a temper? Noah glanced at Faith. Whether it is the cultic gods or the other gods, since they are targeting me today, then they should not have any complaints about being sealed by me, right? Faith fell silent. After a while, she sighed. Let's not talk about the other gods for now, but you have imprisoned the cultic gods. The Queen will not compromise. The Queen of Halloween. Noah's eyes flashed. In the next second, he laughed. Well, I also want to see how powerful the existence that White Yiksha regards as an enemy is. After saying this, Noah looked directly at Faith. Of course, before that, let the Queen of Halloween prepare the means to deal with my another cosmology. Otherwise, there is no need to even compete. After saying this, Noah turned around and walked in another direction. Everyone looked at each other and did not know what to say for a moment. Only Pest looked at Noah's back as he gradually left. Her eyes flashed with an inexplicable splendor. Chapter 1565. After leaving the main hall of the throne hall, Noah turned directly into the corridor and returned to his room. After closing the door, Noah took off his coat and casually threw it on the table beside him. Then, he lay down on the bed and gently breathed a sigh of relief. I didn't expect those guys from the God group to suddenly launch an attack. Undoubtedly, only 1 or 2 days have passed since White Yiksha transferred the sovereignty of the sun to me. Although Noah had long been prepared to confront the various God groups in the upper echelons of the box court, he really did not expect them to suddenly gather together and come out in full force. After all, there were only a dozen or so sun sovereigns, but there were thousands of God groups above. If they joined forces and attacked together, and in the end, if they succeeded in obtaining the sovereignty of the sun from Noah, how would they divide it? The saying that there were too many monks and too little meat referred to this situation. Even if more than half of the sun's sovereigns had to be obtained in order to create a new box court, after the new box court was created, there would still be only a few sun sovereigns. In that case, it was impossible for those God groups not to be moved by the sun sovereigns. In view of this, in Noah's imagination, the various God groups in the upper echelons should not be in a very friendly state. It should be impossible for all of them to join forces and attack him at once. In the end, the God groups in the upper echelons still joined forces and gave Noah a chance to catch them all in one fell swoop. It can't be said that I caught them all in one fell swoop, right? Noah murmured. Those gods in the upper echelons must still have some that have not been mobilized. For example, Noah did not see any two-digit existences. Also, those who occupied dominant positions in various mythological systems, and even those who were main gods and god-kings, were also not present. However, that's more normal, Noah said to himself. They have already mobilized such an army of gods. There's no reason for even the Lord and the generals to follow, right? As he said this, Noah's eyes flashed. Thanks to this, perhaps I didn't encounter an existence that also holds another cosmology. Otherwise, it might not have ended so easily today. After saying that, Noah suddenly smiled. Moreover, this time, I sealed all the god groups in the heaven realm. Not only did it allow me to take control, but it also gave me an unexpected reward. Previously, Noah could only passively wait for the upper echelons of the gods to attack. Now, Noah had sealed many groups of gods in the heaven realm, which was equivalent to obtaining a large group of hostages. Under such circumstances, the gods of the heaven realm would no longer dare to act rashly against Noah. At the very least, a situation like today, where he was surrounded by a sky full of gods and Buddhas, would never happen again. Noah had completely taken control of the situation. The unexpected harvest was obtained by Noah after he sealed the gods and Buddhas in the sky. With such thoughts in mind, Noah flicked his wrist. Following Noah's action, a piece of parchment shining with starlight appeared in Noah's hand. Looking at the shining parchment in his hand, Noah couldn't help but smile. I never thought that one day, I would actually have the authority to be the organizer. Organizer authority. The special authority that could ignore the wishes of the participants and force them to participate in the bestowment game. The existence that abused the organizer authority would fall into the Devil King. However, in fact, the essence of the organizer authority was not used to nourish the growth of evil, but the opposite. From the beginning, the existence of the organizer authority was to prevent the appearance of evil. For example, the rulers of the various regions all had the organizer authority. The main purpose of having this kind of authority was to allow the game of blessings to play a better role in entertaining the people in the box court. The other purpose was to punish the evil existence when there was a huge threat that destroyed the order of the box court. To punish the offender's trial. To confirm the trial of the heart of faith. To welcome the trial of a new evolution. To give the world the right to enforce the trial of goodness. That was the original purpose of the organizer authority. In fact, Noah had even heard that the organizer authority was to defeat the oldest devil king in the final trial of mankind. It was created as a means to fight against the oldest devil king. Therefore, the organizer authority was not a bad thing. It was only later that it was abused. Right now, the parchment in Noah's hand was the organizer authority granted to Noah by the box court. That was because Noah had sealed 1,000,000 deities. Pest was an undead created by the Black Death when the sun entered the Little Ice Age. This spirit allowed her to obtain the organizer authority to take revenge against the sun. Now, Noah had sealed 1,000,000 deities. This action seemed to have been approved by the central authority of the box court. Therefore, the central authority of the box court gave Noah the organizer authority. Because Noah had sealed 1,000,000 deities, he obtained the organizer authority. This authority was also used to target the bestowment game of the deities. If the opponent was not a deity, then the organizer authority would not be able to be used. However, if the opponent was a deity, then the bestowment game of the organizer authority would give Noah a huge advantage when facing a deity. If he had obtained the organizer authority before sealing the deities, then perhaps those deities would not have ended up being sealed. Instead, they would have been massacred. From this point of view, those deities should feel lucky. Unfortunately, the organizer authority is a system unique to the box court. It is also impossible to use it in other worlds. Noah played with the glowing parchment in his hand. He could not help but feel some regret. However, Noah was not too obsessed with this benefit that he had inadvertently obtained. The other worlds might not necessarily have the existence of deities. being able to use it in this box court is already enough. With this thought in mind, Noah put away the glowing parchment in his hand without any reluctance. Knock, knock, knock. Right at this moment, a series of soft knocks sounded from the door. Noah was slightly startled. However, he subconsciously opened his mouth to speak. The door is not locked. Just come in. After saying that, the door did not immediately open. After waiting for a while, Noah, who did not see the door open, looked at the door in confusion. At practically the same time, the person outside seemed to have made up her mind and opened the door. The person who came in from outside the door was a person that surprised Noah. Pest. Surprisingly, it was Pest. However, at this moment, Pest was not wearing a maid outfit. Instead, she was wearing a poisonous flower-like dress with black and white spots on it. The sleeves of the dress were very long, and she was wearing snow boots. There were also 2 black and white ribbons tied around her head. Her attire was exactly the same as when Noah first met Pest, when she was still the Black Death Spot Demon King. After becoming Noah's subordinate, it was not as if Pest had never worn those clothes again. However, she would only change into this attire when in battle. Normally, she would wear a maid outfit. And now, Pest had arrived before Noah in this attire. Naturally, it was not because she wanted to fight against Noah. However, Noah managed to detect something from Pest's attire. Thus, Noah quietly sat up and sat on the edge of the bed as he looked at Pest. Before Noah's gaze, Pest's expression became somewhat stiff. The determination she had made with great difficulty started to waver. The reason for that was because it was very likely that Pest would have to display all of herself before Noah. Regarding this matter, Pest was slightly afraid. As if he did not notice Pest's reaction, Noah directly spoke. "Is there something you want to tell me?" That completely inconsiderate question caused Pest to be unable to help herself from feeling somewhat angry. Undoubtedly, he was very protective and gentle toward other people, even that Vera whom he had just met recently. Why was it that he was not the slightest bit courteous toward her? Had it been any other time, Pest would definitely argue with Noah in a very unconvinced manner. Frankly speaking, this little girl was feeling unbalanced in her heart. However, today, Pest did not plan to mock and ridicule Noah. Looking at Noah who was sitting before her, Pest recalled how he did not show the slightest bit of fear when facing a million gods. Then, she looked at Noah with a determined expression. "I wish to ask you for a favor." Chapter 1566. I would like to ask you for a favor. When those words left Pest's mouth and entered Noah's ears, there was not the slightest trace of surprise on Noah's face. Pest was hiding something in her heart. Noah had long since noticed this. However, in the past, Noah had never paid any attention to this matter. It was not that Noah did not want to pay attention to it. Rather, it was useless even if he did. Since Pest had chosen to hide it, it meant that she did not wish to tell him about it. If that was the case, how could Noah force Pest to tell him what was in her heart? Naturally, that was impossible. It was just like what Letitia said. It was not that Noah did not wish to pay attention to Pest. Rather, he was waiting for Pest to speak. If Pest was unwilling to tell him about it, then Noah's effort to pay attention to her would be in vain. "Please." Noah looked at Pest with a meaningful gaze. "Is it related to the Demon King Alliance?" "Sure enough, you already know about my relationship with the Demon King Alliance." Pest let out a rare bitter laugh. Then, she shook her head in denial. "Unfortunately, even if you ask me about the Demon King Alliance, I am unable to tell you. After all, I am only a low-level member. I have only joined the Demon King Alliance for a short period of time. Furthermore, before the attack on the Fire Dragon's birth ceremony, I have always been working together with His Highness Enling. I am simply unable to come into contact with the Demon King Alliance's internal affairs." Thus, even if you want to ask me about the Demon King Alliance's information, you would already know everything that I know. Is that so? Noah sighed. Forget about it. The Demon King Alliance is nothing more than a puppet controlled by the gods. There is no need to pay attention to them. After saying those words, Noah looked at Pest. In that case, what is the matter that you wish to ask of me? Hearing those words, Pest hesitated for an instant. She did not know how to start the conversation. However, after a while, Pest lowered her head and spoke with a deep voice. I wish to ask you to help me change the fate of the Black Death outbreak. Change the fate of the Black Death? Noah was slightly startled. He spoke with uncertainty. What do you mean? Pest seemed to have decided to throw caution to the wind. She raised her head and looked straight at Noah as she spoke in an extremely serious manner. I want to change the appearance of the Black Death and erase the history of its occurrence. Erase the history of the Black Death? Noah frowned. You're the one controlling the Black Death, right? Can't you do that yourself? If it was that simple, I wouldn't be so vexed. Pest bit her lips. Do you know? I've traveled to many parallel worlds and confirmed the outbreak of the Black Death in all of them. At that time, I knew that the Black Death wasn't a simple natural disaster. It was an event that had obtained the support of the stars and contained a strong absolute destiny. Pest's words caused Noah's heart to pound. It seems that you've already guessed it, Pest laughed in a self-mocking manner. Actually, it's not that hard to guess. The outbreak of the Black Death is related to the sun's cycle. It's the lazy sun that caused the outbreak of the Black Death. If the sun hadn't entered the Little Ice Age, the Black Death wouldn't have appeared. Furthermore, this is the case for the other parallel worlds as well. That's the reason why this is the case, Pest said with resentment and sadness. The outbreak of the Black Death is definitely not a coincidence. Someone used the sun's sovereignty to reduce the sun's activity to the lowest level, causing the Little Ice Age to appear. It made the outbreak of the Black Death inevitable. Hearing this, Noah understood what Pest wanted to say. Noah looked at Pest. You want me to use the sun's sovereignty to change the sun's activity, make the Little Ice Age disappear, and completely eliminate the appearance of the Black Death? That's right. Pest bit her lips and nodded her head heavily. This is the reason why I entered the Box Court, to take revenge against the sun and even degenerate into a demon king. She wanted to change the fate of the Black Death outbreak. Frankly speaking, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to achieve this wish. Firstly, in order to change the sun's activity, she had to obtain the sun's sovereignty. Since the Black Death outbreak had occurred in all parallel worlds, in order to completely eliminate the fate of the Black Death outbreak, she had to change the sun's activity in all parallel worlds. In order to accomplish this, the amount of sun's sovereignty was not something that could be done with one or two sun's sovereignty. It was because of this that Pest used her authority as the organizer to attack the Fire Dragon birth ceremony during the Fire Dragon birth ceremony. Her purpose was to obtain the White Yiksha who possessed more than half of the sun's sovereignty and change the fate of the Black Death outbreak. The reason why Pest joined the Demon King Alliance was also for the sake of obtaining the sun's sovereignty. Firstly, it was because the Demon King Alliance was active for the sake of obtaining the sun's sovereignty. Secondly, it was because Gagel required 10 sun's sovereignty to complete the spirit. This amount of sun's sovereignty was just what Pest needed. Only by doing this would Pest be able to accomplish her wish, the wish of the 80 million wraiths that died due to the Black Death. Merely obtaining the sun's sovereignty was already as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Furthermore, the troubles that Pest had to face were not limited to these. Even if Pest was truly able to obtain enough sun's sovereignty to change the fate of the Black Death outbreak, she would still attract countless enemies. That was because the Black Death outbreak greatly reduced the number of serfs and their productivity, resulting in the appearance of 80 million victims. At the same time, it also caused the social status of the serfs to rise and advance. Originally, in history, the emancipation of the serfs was delayed until the early 1900s. Such an outcome would ultimately hinder the development of enlightenment, liberalism, and other ideas. Moreover, the Black Death outbreak became the foundation of various countries and religions. It changed the situation of countries and societies, and promoted the evolution of human history. The epidemic that could lead to the extinction of the human race ultimately changed the future of the human race. If the Black Death had not occurred, the development of human history would have been delayed by nearly half a century. In that case, it would have affected the birth of the beliefs of numerous religions. In other words, by eliminating the fate of the Black Death outbreak, the influence of the religious beliefs that were promoted by the Black Death would similarly be greatly reduced. To the gods of the various mythological systems that required belief to support their existence, this was simply something that could not be tolerated. Thus, to change the fate of the Black Death outbreak would mean that pest would have to become enemies with all of the gods that had increased their belief due to the Black Death. In fact, some of the demon kings that had obtained all sorts of achievements and inheritances due to the Black Death would also bear their fangs at pest. Moreover, since someone was using the sun's sovereignty to change the sun's activity in the various parallel worlds, causing the Black Death to appear, they would definitely have a goal in mind. Once the appearance of the Black Death was eliminated, these people would view pest as a thorn in their side. What pest was doing was purely making an enemy out of a large number of gods and demon kings. Even if she managed to accomplish this wish, pest would still have to face an unimaginably great enemy. For an existence that was merely in the 5 digits, this was simply too heavy a burden. Even if pest herself was a god, it would still be the same. However, Noah's performance that exceeded Pest's expectations time and time again had aroused the hope in Pest's heart. Firstly, Noah possessed over half of the sun's sovereignty. He was completely capable of helping Pest accomplish her wish. Secondly, Noah possessed the terrifying ability to seal even 1,000,000 gods. He was completely unafraid of the threat posed by those gods and demon kings that needed to rely on the Black Death outbreak to obtain belief and spiritual power. Thus, Noah was completely capable of helping Pest accomplish her wish. Under such circumstances, how could Pest not have hope for Noah? Thus, after learning that Noah possessed over half of the sun's sovereignty and personally witnessing the scene of Noah sealing 1,000,000 gods, Pest was no longer able to hold back the hope in her heart and sought help from Noah. I know that to you, I am merely a dispensable subordinate. In fact, I have always been your enemy. There is no reason for you to make so many enemies for me. Pest did her best to express her sincerity. However, right now, only you can help me. I hope that you can help me. Noah's eyes flickered slightly and he grew silent. Chapter 1567. Seeing Noah growing silent, Pest's heart began to race. Pest knew that with her relationship with Noah, it would be impossible for her to make Noah agree to such a demanding request. But now, Noah was Pest's hope to fulfill her wish. In Pest's eyes, Noah's silence was undoubtedly a sign of hesitation. At that moment, Pest appeared to be slightly agitated. Of the 24 solar sovereigns, 2/3 of them are now in your hands. There are only 8 solar sovereigns remaining. I do not know if 8 solar sovereigns will be enough to eliminate the outbreak of the Black Death. Thus, only you can accomplish this matter. If you are able to promise me this, I will do anything. Pest could not help but become agitated. Eliminate the outbreak of the Black Death. To Pest, this matter was both her wish and her curse. Firstly, Pest herself had died from the Black Death when she was alive and had become an undead. Secondly, as the representative of the 80 million undead, Pest's existence could be said to be sustained by the deaths of 80 million undead. Those 80 million undead had also died from the Black Death. It could be said that Pest herself was an existence that carried the fate of the Black Death. Eliminating the Black Death was not only Pest's wish. It was also the wish of the 80 million undead standing behind Pest. Thus, it could be said that eliminating the outbreak of the Black Death was the meaning of Pest's existence. If she was unable to accomplish this wish, Pest might degenerate from an undead into a vengeful spirit. Furthermore, she might be entangled by the resentment of the 80 million undead that wished to eliminate the Black Death. She might never be able to make a comeback. Of course, to Pest, this consequence was completely insignificant. The reason for that was because Pest herself also wished to eliminate the fate of the Black Death. If she was unable to accomplish this wish, there would be no need for Pest's existence. At that time, there would be no need for her to degenerate into a vengeful spirit. Pest herself would likely collapse completely. To Pest, this matter was that important. With this, how could Pest not be agitated? Pest's agitated behavior had also awakened the silent Noah. Seeing Pest's incomparably excited appearance, Noah said in a somewhat stunned manner, "I'm not going to reject you. Why are you so agitated?" "Ha!" Pest immediately let out a voice that sounded like she had gone off the rails. You're not going to reject me. Why would I reject you?" Noah asked in confusion. "Since I already have more than half of the sun's sovereignty, I can completely help you achieve your wish. To me, this matter is just a piece of cake. Is there a reason to refuse?" But. Pest was unable to react. "Aren't you hesitating? Don't tell me you think I'm hesitating because I'm worried about the gods and the Demon King." Noah curled his lips. "I am now an enemy of all the god groups in the box court, and I have sealed millions of god groups. I have long been enemies with the god groups. Even without you, they would still find trouble with me. Since that is the case, do I still need to worry about them finding trouble with me?" What he said made sense. Thus, Noah had no reason to hesitate about Pest's request. "What I am hesitating about is not your wish," Noah glanced at Pest. "Rather, it is you. My body." Pest was stunned. "You don't understand." "Then I will say it clearly," Noah looked straight at Pest. "Frankly speaking, it is not a good choice for you to come to me for help." After saying those words, Noah stood up before Pest's stunned gaze. He walked over to the window and looked at the sky outside. "If you were to obediently collect the sun's sovereignty and accomplish your wish, although you might attract the hostility of a portion of the god groups and demon kings, it would at most be a few god groups and demon kings. As for me, I am destined to become an enemy of all the god groups in the box court." Noah looked up at the sky and said indifferently, "If you were to come to me for help, I would naturally be able to help you accomplish your wish. However, because of me, you would have to become an enemy of all the god groups in the box court instead of just a portion of the god groups and demon kings. Isn't that even more terrifying than trying to accomplish your wish by yourself?" After he finished saying those words, Noah turned around and cast his gaze toward Pest. "Even so, you still plan to come to me for help?" Pest's expression froze. However, it must be said that what Noah said was very reasonable. If Pest were to accomplish her wish by herself, she might attract the hostility of a portion of the god groups and demon kings. However, that would still be much better than becoming an enemy of all the god groups. If Pest were to ask Noah for help, then, in a situation where Noah was an enemy of all the god groups in the box court, Pest's request would give the higher-up god groups an excuse to make things difficult for Noah. After all, if the enemy was Noah, then those god groups whose faith had weakened due to the disappearance of the Black Death outbreak could definitely seek help from the other god groups that shared a common hatred of Noah. They would work together to deal with Noah and take care of Pest while they were at it. At that time, Pest would not only have to face the hostility of a portion of the god groups and demon kings. Instead, she would have to face the hostility of all the god groups in the box court. There was no need to consider which of the consequences would be more severe. In any case, there are still 8 sun sovereigns. Although 6 of them are in the hands of the Queen of Halloween, becoming an enemy of the Queen of Halloween is still much better than becoming an enemy of all the god groups, right? Noah said helplessly. Perhaps, those 8 sun sovereigns will be able to accomplish your wish. Hearing up to this point, Pest finally understood. Noah was only worried about her. This was the reason for Noah's hesitation. This reason caused Pest's heart to heat up slightly. She could not help but tear up. Seeing this scene, Noah was nearly scared out of his wits. What's wrong with you? No, nothing. Only now did Pest react. She hurriedly wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and turned her head away. I only thought that you only cared about Letitia and never cared about me. Hearing this, Noah scratched his cheek. He had an unspeakable expression on his face. Isn't that because you've always kept everyone at arm's length and treated me with an extremely vile attitude? So there was actually such a reason. Pest was finally able to let go of the knot in her heart. Thus, Pest stepped forward and arrived before Noah. After hesitating for a moment, she extended her 2 small hands and wrapped one of Noah's hands in her palms. Noah blinked his eyes and looked at Pest with a puzzled expression. Under Noah's gaze, although Pest was somewhat bashful, she did not release her grip. While holding onto Noah's hand tightly, she raised her head and looked at Noah with her bright eyes. I am merely a demon king with a 5-digit number of gods. To me, regardless of whether I become enemies with a portion of the gods or all of them, it doesn't make much of a difference. In any case, they are all fatal threats. These words allowed Noah to somewhat understand Pest's intentions. Have you thought it through? Noah met Pest's gaze. But there's no turning back, right? In any case, I am already your subordinate. Even if I don't become your subordinate directly, I will definitely be viewed as an enemy by the higher-ups. It doesn't matter at all. Pest did not avoid Noah's gaze. A peculiar expression flickered in her eyes. Thus, as long as you do not forget that we share a common destiny, even if it is hell, I will still follow you. After saying those words, Pest exerted a bit of force with her hand and pulled Noah down. Then, before Noah could react, Pest suddenly moved forward and gently kissed Noah's lips. Noah opened his eyes wide and looked at Pest with an extremely stunned expression. Pest released Noah's hand and took a few steps back. She raised her voice in a somewhat embarrassed manner and said, Letitia also did this when she swore her loyalty to you, right? Your subordinate isn't just Letitia. You are also my master. After saying those words, Pest turned around and ran away. She ran out of Noah's room. Noah did not know whether to laugh or cry. Why are all the little girls by my side so mature? Chapter 1568. Perhaps it was because their relationship in the past was simply too unsteady, but now that they had suddenly opened their hearts to each other, Pest was not used to it. She did not even bother to discuss with Noah about how to prevent the Black Death from breaking out and directly ran away. From Pest's point of view, Noah, who possessed sovereignty over 16 sons, was already capable of helping her fulfill her wish at any time. Since that was the case, there was no need for her to be anxious. After all, Noah was no idle person. He had to deal with all the gods from the box and think of a way to deal with Az-Dakaha who would break out of his seal in the near future. He was already vexed enough. Thus, how could Pest have the nerve to ask Noah to immediately help her fulfill her wish? In any case, with Noah's sovereignty over the sons, he could eliminate the Black Death with ease at any time. As such, it would not be too late for her to temporarily suppress this matter and wait for Noah to deal with Az-Dakaha before helping her fulfill her wish. That was what Pest was thinking. Noah faintly sensed Pest's thoughts. He could not help but smile. Even though her usual attitude is so vile, as expected, there is a gentle side to that girl's heart. Right after Noah said that, a voice filled with interest sounded in his mind. The young girl who died from the plague, the death god who bears 80 million dead souls, the demon king who spreads the plague to bring about the grace of death. The sudden voice caused Noah to react. He smiled. What's wrong? The dark goddess who once controlled the underworld is interested in my family's maid. A little, Athena did not mind Noah's teasing tone and said. In the past, I was also a goddess who was responsible for bringing death to all living beings. Even though that girl spread the plague to achieve the same goal, as a god, she was also able to directly bestow death to all living beings. She is quite similar to me in many aspects. As she said that, the interest in Athena's voice slowly faded away. Unfortunately, that girl did not have a high understanding of death. In the end, she only used some hurried methods to become the death god. That's why her strength was not satisfactory, right? Hearing Athena's words, Noah's heart was moved. Indeed, Pest was not a proper god. Originally, if one wanted to become a god, other than possessing a suitable spirit, one must also possess a certain amount of faith. Due to Pest's 80 million dead souls, her spirit was unbelievably high compared to ordinary people. She was definitely qualified to become a god. However, Pest did not gather enough faith to become a god. That was why Noah requested White Yiksha to refine the magic book of Hamel's Piper into a ring and wear it on his body. He wanted Pest, who had formed a subordinate contract with him, to become the Grim Reaper in the Hamel's Piper inheritance and become a deity. Although it's a god's business, it's of time. However, in Athena's opinion, a god like Pest was undoubtedly a dabbler. You don't have a high understanding of death. Noah started pondering. After a long while, he suddenly said. Then, Athena, if you were to train Pest, to what extent would you be able to raise her strength? Hearing those words, Athena appeared to be stunned. However, she soon saw through Noah's intention and smiled sweetly. Do you want me to help you train that girl? In the past, you were the dark goddess who controlled hell and possessed the power of death. You were also a wise war goddess who nurtured many outstanding warriors. Noah did not conceal anything and directly said. Since Pest's compatibility with you is pretty good, if you were to train her, you should be able to increase her understanding of the death god's power and increase her strength, right? Of course, Athena said with great confidence. If I were to train that girl, it wouldn't be long before she would be able to advance to the so-called 4-digit level of this world, right? 4-digit level. Noah was somewhat surprised. Can she reach that level? Originally, that girl was only pushed to the position of the death god. She did not have any comprehension of the death god's power. The way she used her power was simply too immature, said Athena. Under such circumstances, that girl was still able to become the so-called top 5-digit figure. Then, if I were to train her, it wouldn't be strange for her to obtain the power that truly matches the Grim Reaper and advance to the 4-digit figure, right? That's truly great, Noah smiled lightly. Since that's the case, I'll have to trouble you to train Pest. Very well. I am also slightly interested in that girl's growth. Athena's mood seemed to have become quite good. Never would I have expected that I, who had lost my status as a goddess, would have the opportunity to resume my old profession. Allow me to train that girl into a qualified god. Only then did Noah smile in satisfaction. At this moment, Athena uttered a shocking sentence. Also, I didn't come looking for you because that girl has a good compatibility with me. Instead, it's because I've confirmed the method to strengthen the sun's sovereignty. The sudden surprise stunned Noah. When he came to his senses, Noah was overjoyed. So soon. If we were to search for the other strengthening methods one by one, it would naturally take more time, Athena said to Noah. However, I've already decided what kind of strengthening the sun's sovereignty should be used for from the very beginning. Now, all that's left is to develop the strengthening method. You've already decided what kind of strengthening it should be used from the very beginning. Noah couldn't help but be stunned. The sun's sovereignty you've obtained has its own inheritance. It will allow you to obtain the corresponding ability, Athena explained. However, I think that instead of using these sun sovereigns to obtain some abilities that might not be useful to you, it's better to use them to explore your strengths. Haven't you realized what's the most powerful part of your body? Athena suddenly spoke as if she had woken up from a dream. The most powerful part of your body isn't the authority from God, nor is it the grace called ability value from the goddess. It's your possibilities. Noah suddenly trembled as if he had been struck by an electric current. Under such circumstances, Athena continued to speak. In your memory, the virgin goddess from another world has already told you that the possibilities in your body are very terrifying. It's almost to the point where it's impossible to predict. Even if she grants you the grace of God and allows you to obtain ability value, you still need a lot of conditions to level up. Other adventurers only needed to raise one of their ability values to the D stage to meet the conditions for leveling up. Then, they would complete a great deed and be able to level up. However, Noah needed to raise all of his ability values to the SSS stage of 2000 proficiency points to meet the conditions for leveling up. That was because Noah's possibilities were too great, so the foundation he needed to establish was many times higher than others. I've been observing you all this time. I've even peeked into your life from your past memories. As a lucky person who has been blessed by many worlds, I have to say that you are indeed quite special. Your existence is more mysterious than the so-called gods, Athena said in a solemn tone. You are so special. The possibilities contained in your body are extremely terrifying even to me. Up until now, I have learned of all kinds of heroes and heroic spirits from all kinds of myths. There is no lack of existences that even the gods fear, but you are above them. Therefore, I think that the terrifying possibilities in your body are your greatest treasure. Athena's words poked at Noah's truth. Therefore, from the very beginning, the use of the sun's sovereignty that I thought of was not to strengthen your ability. Noah Dole, I want to use the sun's sovereignty to explore the huge possibilities in your body and make you an invincible existence. Chapter 1569. Become an undefeatable existence? At this moment, even Noah almost stopped breathing because of Athena's arrogant words. If it were someone else who said this, Noah would definitely not believe it. However, Athena was the goddess of wisdom. If she wasn't confident in something, she definitely wouldn't say such words so easily. In other words, Athena was confident that she could make Noah truly an undefeatable existence. No. To be more precise, she was confident that after discovering all the possibilities in Noah's body, she could make Noah an undefeatable existence. Only someone who clearly noticed how great the possibilities in Noah's body were would be able to say such words. And indeed, Noah possessed astonishing talents from a young age. Up until now, he had been growing and had never slowed down for even a moment. That was enough to prove that Noah was actually a person with almost infinite possibilities. If the huge possibilities in Noah's body could be discovered, by then, these possibilities would all become the nourishment for his ability value. Noah didn't know what kind of improvement his ability value would have at that time, and to what extent he could strengthen himself. However, at least, by then, Noah should be able to rely on his extraordinary ability value and the unlimited spiritual power provided by the third perpetual motion machine to successfully reach the realm of using all 10 avatars at the same time. When Noah used 2 avatars at the same time, he could already reach 3 digits. When Noah used 3 avatars at the same time, he would be at the peak of 3 digits, becoming someone who even the King of Gods and King of Gods could not compare to. It was not strange at all. And if Noah paid a price and forcibly used 4 avatars, he could definitely reach 2 digits and be on par with existences like White Yaksha and Halloween Queen. In this way, If Noah could use 10 avatars at the same time, coupled with the increase in his ability value, he could become an undefeatable existence. Could he not do it? Of course, whether he could do it or not, Noah did not know. Noah only knew that if he really reached that point, no matter what, in the worlds he had been to, he would definitely not be able to find an opponent, including this box. Therefore, Noah could not help but speak. Can the possibilities in my body really be discovered by relying on the sun's sovereignty? If you must say it can or can't, the answer is naturally yes. Athena's voice did not have the slightest hesitation. The sun's sovereignty is a very special existence and has a wide range of uses. Many individuals who occupy special positions in this world use the sun's sovereignty to complete their spirit and achieve great things. That is a process of discovering possibilities. For example, if Galji could gather 10 sun sovereignty and complete the spirit, he could become an individual who was more than a two-digit existence like Shakyamuni. It was because Galji was the 10th incarnation of Vishnu, the hero who saved the world in the apocalypse. His body contained the possibility of becoming a supreme existence. That was why he could use the sovereignty of the sun to complete the spirit and achieve himself. Otherwise, there wouldn't be only a few people who could use the sun's sovereign to complete the spirit lattice. Now, Noah was only using the sun's sovereignty to do the same thing as Galji. Now, follow my method and use the sun's sovereignty to explore the possibilities in your body. In this way, your ability value will be able to draw out your possibilities and turn them all into your strength. After that, Athena began to explain the method of using the sun's sovereignty to explore possibilities. Listening to the voice directly in his heart, Noah almost subconsciously closed his eyes and immersed his mind in the depths of his heart. He came to the center of the universe sea. The stone plate with 10 patterns on its outline was still suspended in the universe sea. In the center of the stone plate, in the imprint of the sun, engravings that represented the sun's sovereignty were neatly arranged. Under Athena's guidance, Noah integrated his mind into the sun and connected with the engravings that represented the sun's sovereignty. Clang! The next moment, the engravings began to flash with dazzling light one after another, illuminating the entire universe sea. The light was just like the sun. It was dazzling and dazzling. It was warm and warm. The dazzling brilliance like the sun shone in the entire universe sea, and under the guidance of Noah's mind, it gushed out of the universe sea. The dazzling brilliance that gushed out of the universe sea suddenly shone in Noah's body and shone on every corner of Noah's body. Wherever the dazzling brilliance from the universe sea passed, the endless energy flowing in Noah's body seemed to be boiling and surging like a river. At the same time, Noah clearly felt it. In the depths of his body, something that could not be sensed before was gradually reacting. That reaction seemed to attract the dazzling brilliance shining in every corner of Noah's body and all of it gathered there. As the dazzling brilliance gathered, the reaction became more and more intense. Sensing this reaction, Noah was overjoyed. That reaction was definitely the possibility contained in Noah's body. Next, he only needed to use the power of sun's sovereignty to draw out those possibilities, and then it would be a success. Therefore, Noah began to concentrate all his mind on his body, allowing the power of sun's sovereignty to gather at the place where the reaction occurred. In Noah's room, the atmosphere of silence spread little by little. Noah sat cross-legged on the bed in the room. His eyes were closed, and his body was motionless. He maintained this state and allowed time to pass. After an unknown amount of time, Noah slowly opened his eyes. The look in his eyes was that of indescribable helplessness. For a moment, the silent atmosphere in the air began to become heavy. After a while, Athena's voice sounded in Noah's mind. It seems that the attempt to use sun's sovereignty to explore the possibilities in your body failed. Yes. It failed. Noah had not been able to use sun's sovereignty to explore the possibilities in his body. This was because even though Noah had gathered all of his son's sovereignty's power at the corner of the possibilities in Noah's body were only restless and did not show any signs of being drawn out. The possibilities in my body have already reacted, proving that your method is correct, Noah frowned. However, those possibilities have not been drawn out. Why is that? It's very simple, Athena said calmly. Since it can be drawn out but cannot succeed, it is undoubtedly because the power used to draw it out is too weak. Weak? Noah hesitated for a moment before speaking with uncertainty. You mean that the power of sun sovereignty is not enough? To be precise, it should be that the power of 16 sun sovereigns is not enough to uncover your potential. Athena sighed, which was rare of her. It seems that the possibilities in your body are more terrifying than I thought. No matter how terrifying it is, if it cannot be used, it will be useless, Noah said helplessly. Then what should I do? Do you need me to teach you the method? Athena said bluntly. Since the power used to draw it out is not enough, then increase the power used to draw it out. Athena's words did not surprise Noah. This was because Noah had already thought of the method. Aren't there still 8 sun sovereignty left? Athena directly stated the most basic solution. Go and collect them. In other words, in order to explore the huge possibilities in Noah's body, Noah had to gather all 24 sun sovereignties. Gather all the sun sovereignties. Noah thought of something and the corners of his mouth slowly lifted. It seems that the gods that I have sealed will come in handy. Are you planning to play a game with the gods? Athena seemed to have thought of the same method and said with some joy. What a man who is unwilling to be lonely, but he won't be boring. Chapter 1570. Like a typhoon, the troubles of the gods and Buddhas in the sky started and ended in a hurry. After Noah dispelled them, nothing special happened on that day. Of course, Noah had sealed 1,000,000 gods in front of everyone. It was impossible to stop the news from spreading even if one wanted to. Therefore, the people who had witnessed that scene felt as if they had had a strange dream. They had been talking about it enthusiastically, making the entire vampire's castle extremely lively. It was estimated that the news of Noah sealing 1,000,000 gods had spread to the entire box court, let alone the vampire's castle. Therefore, everyone who knew about this matter was making guesses. How would the gods in the upper echelons of the box court deal with this matter? How would Noah, who had sealed 1,000,000 gods and caused them to suffer fatal blows, deal with this matter? For a moment, everyone was concerned about this kind of thing. It was also because of this that White Yiksha had transferred more than half of the sun's sovereignty to Noah, allowing Noah to have sovereignty over a total of 16 suns. This included the embarrassing matter of the many gods in the upper echelons openly joining forces to attack Noah in order to obtain sovereignty over the sun. They had brazenly tried to snatch it away, but in the end, all of them had been sealed. This was also spread out. In the box court, there were actually many communities that were attached to the gods in the heaven realm. Those communities, because of the orders of the gods in the heaven realm, did not go to the vampire's castle to fight against Azdakaha together. Originally, this matter had made the ordinary residents of the box court extremely dissatisfied. After all, everyone was responsible for the rise and fall of the world. Azdakaha's existence was a matter of life and death for the entire Hecate. Those communities that did not have the strength to participate in the war were fine. Those communities that were attached to the gods in the heaven realm definitely had the strength to participate in the war, but they did not. How could it not make people sad? This time, the gods had openly snatched the sovereignty of a human son, making the situation of those communities that were attached to the gods even more embarrassing. As a result, whether it was the many groups of gods in heaven or those communities that were attached to the groups of gods, all of them were pushed to the cusp of the storm of rumors and slanders. Their reputations were in jeopardy. However, compared to their reputation, the gods of the heaven realm were more concerned about the gods that had been sealed by Noah. If he could not get Noah to release the millions of sealed gods, the consequences would be unimaginable. Therefore, the gods of the heavenly realm must have made a ruckus because of this matter. However, the people in the lower bound had no way of knowing how big the uproar in the heavenly realm was. They were still spreading the news by word of mouth, which made the name Noah Dole even more legendary. It also made the reputation of those gods even worse. As for what was happening outside, Noah didn't know either. Today, after waking up early in the morning, Noah headed to No Name's headquarters in the minister's hall to prepare for breakfast. Because there weren't many members in No Name, they usually gathered together to eat. Although Letitia claimed that as a maid, she wanted to serve her master Noah as much as possible, Noah had no reason to eat alone just because he was being served, so he rejected Letitia's proposal. In view of this, now, in the morning, Letitia no longer went to Noah's room to serve him. Of course, this was only limited to the situation where Noah didn't oversleep. If Letitia arrived at the hall and didn't see Noah, then she would probably go to Noah's room to wake him up as a maid and help Noah dress and wash up. In fact, Noah really wanted to complain. Undoubtedly, Letitia was only his subordinate. Why did she always claim to be a maid? At first, it was because of White Yiksha's fooling around that Letitia wore a maid uniform to express her gratitude to Noah. Now, Letitia was playing more and more enthusiastically. She had long regarded herself as Noah's personal maid and claimed to be so, which made Noah a little speechless. However, in general, Letitia was happy and Noah didn't lose anything. Every day, he could have a cute little maid serving by his side. That was quite a pleasing thing, so Noah didn't correct her. Maybe, sometimes I can deliberately sleep in and enjoy the feeling of being woken up by a golden-haired lowly maid. That's not bad. With this thought, Noah smiled and walked into the hall. In the hall, other than Noah, the rest of the members of No Name were all present. Black Rabbit, whose ears were more sensitive, was the first to notice Noah's arrival. A pair of rabbit ears stood up very flexibly. "Mr. Noah, good morning." "Good morning," Noah smiled at Black Rabbit. The others also noticed Noah's arrival. They all turned to look at Noah. "Good morning." "Good morning, everyone," Noah greeted them. "Good morning, Master," Letitia nodded at Noah. Beside them, Pest also spoke in a very natural manner. "Good morning, Master." However, Pest's words caused the atmosphere in the entire hall to become sluggish. Everyone present turned their astonished gazes to Pest. Their appearance was simply as if they had encountered something inconceivable. Being stared at by so many people with inconceivable gazes, Pest involuntarily took a step back and spoke in a very puzzled manner. What sort of expression is that?" The people present ignored Pest's puzzlement. Instead, they looked at each other in dismay. Their eyes were still filled with disbelief. After a while, Feinyao looked to Yao and asked as if seeking confirmation of something. Pest addressed Noah as Master. She even took the initiative to greet him. That's right, Yao also had an expression of disbelief. That Pest actually addressed Noah as Master. She even took the initiative to greet him. Ren hesitated for a moment before speaking in a weak voice. "That can't be, right? Could it be that we've made a mistake somewhere?" "That's right," Black Rabbit secretly sized up Pest. "Miss Pest, you couldn't possibly have eaten something bad, right? You all." Pest clenched her little fists tightly. Character had appeared on her forehead. "Exactly how rude of a person am I in your eyes?" "That's right," Letitia admonished in a methodical manner. "What you all are saying is a bit too rude." Pest crossed her arms before her and nodded repeatedly. However, in the next second, what Letitia said caused Pest to nearly fall down. Pest has only finally come to realize her duty as a maid. Her awakening of her heart to serve others is something that we should acknowledge. Who would wake up from such a messy state of mind? Pest shouted loudly. I merely acknowledged my master. What's so strange about that? Hearing those words, Fei Niao, Yao, Letitia, Ren, and Black Rabbit spoke in unison. It's very strange, right? It's very strange. It's very strange. It's very, very strange, isn't it? Yes. It's very strange. I understand now. You all want me to determine the cause of your deaths, right? Pest lowered her head. Her delicate body started to shiver. A burst of black wind started to swirl around her body. Powerful anger filled the air. Since that's the case, it's decided then. Your cause of death is death from illness. Seeing that Pest was about to flip out, the people present finally realized that the joke had gone too far. Immediately, they cried out in alarm and hid behind Letitia. Unfortunately, it was simply impossible for a little maid who appeared to be only 11 or 12 years old to block so many people. It was as if the group of people were putting on a monkey show. Such a joyous and harmonious scene caused Noah to feel very helpless. However, he was unable to prevent the corners of his mouth from slowly curling up. Enough, all of you, stop messing around. Noah shook his head with a smile on his face. Then, he looked to Pest. Pest, you too. I still have to introduce an instructor to you later. Instructor. Pest was startled. Instructor. The others were also startled. That's right, Noah nodded and said. She boasted that she would help you reach a 4-digit rank. You have to work hard. Chapter 1571. 4 digits. Black Rabbit, Flying Bird, Yao, Letitia, Ren, and the others all opened their eyes wide. Me. 4 digits. Pest, on the other hand, had a blank expression on her face as if she couldn't connect the two factors together. Noah didn't say anything and directly said, All right. All right, come out and meet everyone. As soon as his voice fell. Clang! Behind Noah, a platinum light suddenly shone. Wang! As if unwilling to be outdone, a silver light also blossomed from behind Noah. Within the dazzling platinum light and silver light, 2 petite figures slowly appeared. They absorbed all the light around them into their bodies, as if they were planning to use the light to form their bodies. Bit by bit, they appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The group of people were suddenly blinded by the dazzling light that suddenly shone, causing them to slightly close their eyes. When everyone opened their eyes again, 2 petite girls with silvery hair that was as soft as moonlight had already appeared on Noah's left and right. However, although the 2 petite girls also had silvery hair that was as soft as moonlight, one of them only had shoulder-length hair, while the other had waist-length hair. Aster. Noah was somewhat stunned as he looked at the girl with silvery hair that was as long as her waist. Why did you also come out? Aster didn't say anything. Instead, she tightly stared at Noah, causing Noah's expression to become somewhat unnatural. Immediately after, Aster once again turned her head around. She didn't say anything and had an extremely cold appearance. Noah, who was familiar with Aster, knew. This elven girl was definitely throwing a tantrum again because of some inexplicable matter. For example, only allowing Athena to come out, but not allowing her to appear. Everyone present knew who Aster was. Although they didn't know what kind of existence Aster was, Aster had once acted in No Name. She even had a very good relationship with a group of girls and had taken a bath together. Therefore, the members of No Name all knew that Aster was also Noah's subordinate. It was just that Aster's presence was usually too weak. It was easy for people to overlook the existence of this elven girl, so no one really interacted with Aster. However, at the very least, both parties had met before and were acquainted with each other. However, no one could recognize Athena. that. Ren seemed to feel that as the leader, he should take the lead and ask Athena tentatively. You are. Hearing this, Athena turned her head and looked at Ren. Her pair of seductive snake eyes flickered as if she was staring at her prey, causing Ren's heart to almost stop beating. Under such circumstances, Athena spoke softly. Although this concubine's name isn't something that needs to be hidden, there's no benefit in saying it. You can just call this concubine Pallas. Pallas is another name for Athena. This title had the meaning of the Maiden of Athens. In Homer's epic, Pallas was often used to refer to Athena. Therefore, many people believe that Pallas was the original name of the goddess of wisdom, Athena. In the later development of history, as the Athenians worshipped this goddess gradually became known as Athena. Because of this, Athena was also known as Pallas Athena, meaning the Palace of Athens. The Pyrrhachians also believed that Athena was born from Zeus and was raised by the river god Triton. Pallas was Triton's daughter, Athena's playmate, who was unfortunately accidentally killed by Athena. The Pyrrhachians believed that this myth was the origin of Athena and linked it to the young goddess worshipped in Libya, which was Pallas, making Pallas another name for Athena. From this point of view, there was nothing wrong with Athena reporting her name. As for why Athena reported such a name, Noah also somewhat understood. After all, in the box, there was also a goddess named Athena. If Athena were to report her name here, it would definitely involve the issue of her birth. In order to avoid this, Athena did not report her real name and instead reported her other name. This was because Pallas had the meaning of the young girl of Athens. Many young girls who had a deep relationship with Athens would be given this name by their parents. It was like a more general name, so it wouldn't arouse too much suspicion. In fact, other than Ren, who seemed to be somewhat puzzled, the others did not show much surprise when they heard the name Pallas. Pest looked at Athena as if she was sizing her up. She spoke to Noah with uncertainty in her voice. She is the instructor you spoke of. That's right, Noah nodded his head in understanding. Is there a problem? If you must say something, you definitely have it, right? Pest looked at Athena with a skeptical expression. Can you really help me reach 4 digits? It was not that Pest wanted to doubt Athena. Rather, this was not an easy task to begin with. As a deity, Pest was an existence that stood at the apex among the 5-digit deities. She was only a step away from reaching the 4-digit deity's level. However, this single step was as far as the eye could see. While it might seem like there was only a difference of 1 level between 4 digits and 5 digits, the former was classified as the upper level of the box. Even the majority of the Asura gods and Buddhas were at this level. As for the latter, they were classified as the middle level of the box. In the vampire's castle, there were many communities with 5 digits. For example, the community of Sarah and Shadora, who were the rulers of those levels, had 5 digits. However, in the vampire's castle, apart from Letitia and the Queen's Knight, only 16th Knights had the ability to reach 4 digits. And now, Noah was saying that as long as this young girl, who was not much older than Pest, gave some guidance, Pest would be able to reach 4 digits. Was this convincing? Faced with Pest's suspicion, Athena merely glanced at her. Right at this moment, Pest felt as if all of her body's temperature had been snatched away. Her blood was gradually cooling down. Even her life was slowly slipping away. That sort of sensation caused Pest to feel as if she had fallen into an icehouse. Instinctively, Pest waved her hand. Immediately, a burst of black wind appeared around her. Like a berserk pitch-black air current, the black wind swept toward Athena. The surrounding people immediately cried out in alarm. Hearing the cries of alarm, Pest finally reacted. Her expression changed. However, right at the moment when Pest planned to pull back her hand, the scene that occurred before her caused her expression to freeze. Facing the wind of death that could instantly take away a person's life, Athena looked at it as if she was looking at a toy. She gently extended her hand towards the black wind that was sweeping towards her. Upon coming into contact with Athena's hand, the black wind immediately emitted a strange sound as if it was a flame that had encountered water. Immediately after, the black wind started to swirl around Athena's hand. It turned into a clump of black gaseous substance that gently landed on Athena's palm. Seeing this scene, the crowd were all stunned. Pest was even more shocked. Athena lowered her eyes and looked at the clump of black gaseous substance in her hand. With a somewhat disinterested expression, she spoke. In the past, this humble one was also an existence that brought about the end of life. However, I have now lost the authority to wield death. Yet, I am able to rely on my understanding of death to seize the authority to control the power of death from you. It would appear that your understanding of the power of death is even weaker than this humble one had imagined. Pest was immediately speechless. There is no need for you to feel ashamed, Athena looked to Pest. With a casual wave of her hand, she dispersed the clump of black gaseous substance in her hand. Although you are still very immature, immaturity also means that you have ample room for growth and improvement. As long as you accept this humble one's training, it will not be difficult for you to reach the 4-digit level. Hearing those words, Pest's eyes started to shine. Pest immediately turned around and looked at Noah. Evidently, Pest already believed in Athena's ability. Well, that's how it is, Noah spread open his hands and said to Pest. Thus, Pest, from now on, you will learn from Pallas. Pest took a deep breath and nodded her head heavily. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.